Welcome to HR Voices, a podcast for independent HR and people professionals and the businesses they support. HR Voices is brought to you by the expert team at HR Independence Limited. We hope you enjoy.
Hi, welcome to another edition of HR Voices podcast. I am your host, Mary Asante, and with me here today, I've got the amazing Mike Pagan. Hi, Mike.
Hi there. I always like it when people say amazing, although it puts me in a position where, oh, go on then, be. There's a challenge, be amazing. Oh, how do I do that?
You are amazing. So I will let Mike introduce himself very shortly, but today we'll be discussing mental wealth. That is breaking the silence around executive isolation. And generally, this is a massive issue anyway. I think the higher up you go in an organization, especially at the C-suite, the more isolated you can become. And in terms of our audience as well, a lot of us run our own consultancies and our own businesses, and it can be even more isolated. And that is one of the reasons why we formed HR Independence, to create a community for HR Independence across the UK and to support them. So a very pertinent topic for our audience and for this podcast. So thank you very much, Mike, for agreeing to come to talk to us about this very important topic. Now, before we dive into it, would you like to tell our audience and listeners a bit about yourself?
Happy to. So I've been running a coaching and performance business for 22 years now. I'm based in the UK, in Warwickshire in the Midlands, and I work across the planet, basically. I have clients on the other side of the world. I have clients in Europe, and I have clients that I go and have coffee with around the corner, which is quite civilized. The work I do, you introduced the language of mental wealth there. So this is not mental health. Mental health, we're all on a mental health spectrum. We have good days, we have not so good days. We wake up feeling 7 out of 10, and then we wake up the following day feeling 2 out of 10 for no apparent difference. And so that is mental health. We yo-yo on that spectrum. My focus here is on mental wealth, though, which is the yin to the yang of mental poverty. And what I mean by that is poverty is when we are isolated, cut off, and adrift. We haven't got the right people around us asking the right questions, challenging us, and we just get into that negative spiral, which can then, in turn, have a detrimental effect on our mental health. So the mental wealth movement is all about building powerful support teams around us as individuals, around us as professionals, be that C-suite executives, be that graduate interns, and everything in between. We need to have good people around us, managing the isolation, enabling us to have good, honest, real conversations. I always use the language of who do you have in your network that you can be open, honest, vulnerable, and mentally naked with? That's so powerful.
Very, very powerful, and that is very pertinent, I think. They're open, honest, and the mentally naked with, which is you can be truly yourself. I think we all talk about authenticity, being our true selves, etc. But the reality is a lot of the time we hold back something, isn't it? We're not totally all out there. We're not totally all opened about things that we are going through and the situations that we may find ourselves in. So I think that is very important to touch on.
And it's one of those areas within the HR community, within the HR world. The reason why people like us work in HR is because we care, we give, and we look after, and we try to fix, support, and do everything along that way, which means we're brilliant at doing for others. You know exactly where I'm going here. So we see a problem, we fly and we try and fix it, or we try and find the right people, make the right connections, do all the good stuff. But very rarely do we press that pause button and stick self-care at the top of the agenda.
Absolutely. And the other way you find that probably quite commonly on social media and elsewhere is pretty much who looks after HR, because HR looks after everyone else, but then who looks after HR? And the question is, most of the time, nobody, because like you just said, HR themselves often don't even look after HR. We're too busy looking after everyone else.
Because that's the job. Our job is to look after. I was talking to an HR, a well-being director yesterday, and they have 17,000 employees in the health sector in the US. And it was fascinating business. But this lady, she's on crutches at the moment. She's got physical challenges. She's got whatever else going on in her world. But her focus is still on fixing the 17,000 and helping them, not on taking and pausing and really looking after number one, because it's that cliched phrase that if put on your oxygen mask first. Yeah, we know that. But the reality check is until we actually pause and decide that being selfish is okay. Yeah, you've got to share your toys with Billy. You've got to share your toys with Claire, whatever the child's name, Gloria, whoever. And if you don't, then you're a bad person because you're not sharing. That means you're selfish. And then as we get older, you actually realize, and it's not until you're in your mid whatevers, you suddenly realize. There's a wonderful actress, Dame Helen Mirren, and many years ago there was a print which was associated with her, but it's associated with many. And just the photograph of her, and had these words next to it, and I laminated it for my middle daughter who's going through some challenging times at school. And it just said, "My only regret in life is not telling more people to off earlier." And it was that's part of being selfish. Because when we're looking after number one, we realize the people that are good for us, the good that they boost, they engineer, they stimulate, they inspire, they all of those wonderful things. Well, that's about looking after number one. And we have to do more of that. Otherwise, negative spiral comes along.
Yeah, absolutely. And why do you think people go through these struggles or isolations often, more often than not, quietly?
The simple answer to that is because it's not cool to ask for help. So if we're not asking for help because we're not strong, we're not brilliant, we're not awesome, then we're weak. And this is one of the areas when you think of it in a large organization or a small organization, it's the same challenge. You're not going to tell a stakeholder or an owner above you that you don't know the answer. You're not going to tell a co-director you're not sure what way to go next because they might use it against you later. You talk to your husband, wife, partner, whoever that happens to be, and they'll always got your back, hopefully. The people that you meet at the school gate, at the sports environment, whatever it is, always say, "Go for it, Mary," because you always land on your feet. And the guys that work for you, well, you're not going to tell them you don't know which way to go because A, they want your job, and B, they're going to stab you in the back because you're the reason why they're getting their promotion or not, where their rent's getting paid or their mortgage getting paid. So suddenly you're in this isolated position and it just doesn't work. When, as a graduate intern, you can't tell people around you don't know what to do because that holds against you. But how are you going to learn? If you can't open up and say, "I'm not sure which way to go." If we're going down the isolation bit, well, clearly we're going to start talking about hybrid working as well in a moment. Because again, that's got all the challenges associated with it that, yes, it's good, but it's also very bad.
Yeah. So like everything else, I think if we focus on the first point you made, which is this idea that we've all got to be good at everything, good at our jobs, good socially, good whatever we're doing, sometimes stops us from asking for help. Because if I come to you, say, "Hey, Mike, can you help me with this?" That is me showing my vulnerability, showing that actually I'm struggling with something, which is okay. Because for me, asking for help is a sign of strength, not weakness, because not many people will ask for help. And I think a lot of people don't recognize that actually it's okay not to know. It's okay in the work. That's why we have teams, right? That's why we have people around us. And that's why we have people in our networks. And even if you're working in isolation as a consultant, solopreneur, or whatever, you're likely to have somebody within your network that you can certainly bounce ideas off.
And it's bouncing those ideas. And when you're in that hybrid environment, I'm fortunate I've got a garden office where I work. So I've got a whole 30-meter commute from my back door. Well, I say fortunate am I? I'm cut off at the bottom of my garden and doing the work. And that means I can be uber productive when I'm on it. But then I'm playing with the dartboard or the dog or the cuddly toy or the other distraction things that come in, because my first book was written about productivity, procrastination, and faffing about. And it's sort of, that whole setup of it. The joke is it took me 5 years to write it because I was faffing about that much.
Yeah.
But it's stuff like that where, we get cut off. And you look working from your parents' spare bedroom for a young person with a laptop on your lap, Netflix on the TV in the background, the cat at your feet, mum popping in every half an hour with a cup of tea. That's not a professional mindset. You're not going to be in an environment where Mary and Mike are working in the same team and I'm listening to the conversation you're having with the disgruntled employee in SOTA or wherever they happen to be, because I need to understand how you deal with that so I can learn. Whereas other side of that coin, I'm not learning.
I think that is an interesting thing, because I am a big fan of hybrid and remote working, because there's a whole section of society that actually that style of working supports and help them to stay in work, to be engaged, etc. But there's also that psychological impact or elements that you've touched on, which is actually, whilst people are working remotely, the likelihood is that they will be isolated from the rest of the workforce and the rest of the team. So we almost need to make a conscious effort to ensure that we create that psychologically safe environment for them to operate, which is giving them opportunities to actually socialize with people, to be able to, like you said, learn from people. So if it's coming in a couple of days a week into an office environment, if the opportunity is available, facilitating or tailoring those days to be days when the rest of the teams will be in, maybe more senior members of staff will be in, colleagues, etc., so that people get the opportunity to learn from each other, to pick up knowledge, to bounce ideas, and also to get to know who is in their teams a bit more.
I think there's going to be a move back to some of the old-fashioned, for want of a better phrase, team building days, where, and I'm not saying we're forcing people to climb up ropes and do ugly like that, but half a day of intensive work-related upskilling, information sharing, all of that bit. But then the other half of the day is we need to spend time socializing, so that I know that when I'm talking to Abdul later on, 3 weeks later, we built a relationship because of that environment. Whereas if I've never met that person and I've been in the organization 2 years, which happened through COVID and is still continuing today, then we've got to get that balance right. And that's why I said hybrid working is good, but it's also very bad. And we need to be professional where that's looked after.
And actually, on that note, before COVID, when most organizations were mostly in the office all the time, I think some organizations were moving towards hot desking, where people were forced to sort of move around within the organizations and stuff, and sometimes work remotely, but most people were in office. You can be in an office environment, even in an open office, and still be isolated. So it's not an issue that is confined to remote or hybrid working alone, is it?
No, I mean, isolation has happened for many decades. One of the classic examples, I've worked with professional elite sportsmen and women at the end of their careers, transitioning to life after sport. And that guillotine moment that comes down, they've got old, they've got broken, they've lost form, whatever reason. They had 35 people yesterday keeping them on the pitch, on the track, or in the pool. The following day, none of those people are fit for purpose in their support network. They've gone. They're a depreciating asset. And this is the whole thing. They're now transitioning into the next version of themselves. And this is what we're doing. It's not reserved for people coming out the military solely or people changing from sports. We are evolving throughout our lives, from education to first role, second role, to property owner, to married, spouse, children or not children. Every single 5 years, we're going through another transitional place. And that support network around us needs to evolve. And it's knowing. I get a lot of people when I work with them, be that from the stage or one-to-one, to just do a simple exercise, which I give you here. Just write down a list of all the names of the people that are in your support network. And don't think about them too much. Just write down the list of all those names. And whilst I'm talking, people will be writing this down, unless they're driving, in which case, wait till you park up later. But yeah, and it's writing down those. Now, once you've got a list, and now you might have put 4 names, you might have put 15 names, whatever the number is, score them on a level of 1 to 10, where 1 is a low score, 10 is a high score. And this is their level of commitment to you. And that's a key point. Yeah. But this is just your gut feel. Yeah. Let's just go with that. So let me translate what those numbers mean. If you've got somebody that I asked you to write down your support network, and if you've scored somebody a 1, 2, or a 3, they're not in a support network. They're just a name of somebody you know. Yeah. You've met them. If you scored them a 4 or a 5, you've met them because of a reason. They could be a work colleague, but actually, if you don't turn up for 2 months, they're not going to pick up the phone and ring you. Yeah. If you score a 6 or a 7, these can be your best friends. These can be your colleagues for decades. You've been to weddings, funerals, christenings, births, whatever it happens to be. But the issue here is you're not comfortable being open, honest, and vulnerable with them. You're not going to show them your inner underbelly. That's reserved for your 8, 9s, and 10s.
Yeah.
And it's not about doctoring those numbers either. It's about knowing who those are. And the scary reality is, and I've done this with multiple organizations and multiple talks that I've done across the place, the number of people, specifically in HR, that come back with 0 people scoring 8, 9, or 10 for them.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure that people listening who think, actually, I've got no one in my 8, 9, or 10 for various reasons, I think must be quite high.
And it's a scary reality. However, that's a good reality. That's like going and having an X-ray of your whole body and seeing, okay, I haven't got any problems that I need to be worried about apart from age. So that's okay. That's a baseline. Well, this is what we're talking about here. It's a baseline. And that baseline then enables people, okay, I need to actively recruit. So who's in my self-care team? Who have I got coaching me? Who have I got in my professional network, the ones that read the small print? Because I know people love litigious paperwork of 47 pages of whatever else. Not for me, but I've got people who do. And then the final area of that is who's in that peer support group, that mastermind group. And this, the HR collective you have here is so powerful because that's having people in there to talk to, to work with, to hold you accountable. So important.
Yeah. That is very important in terms of knowing who is in your network, and knowing who is in your network is not just important. It's the same as I think thinking around the lines or along the lines of I've got 15 friends. That's great. Who are these friends? Oh, they're people I see, whatever. Okay, so who can you talk to about? Oh, none of them really, because we just meet down the pub and we have a pint or 2 and everyone goes their way. Oh, who will be able to pick you up if your car were to break down and you couldn't get, I don't really think there's anyone I can call when it comes to that. And I think
Mm.
you go very quickly from, I've got 15 friends, hence I've got a lot of friends, to actually, if I think about it, I don't have that many close friends.
Yeah.
And having people in your 8, 9, and 10, to me, is synonymous to that. Having people that you can be honest, open, and vulnerable with, knowing that there'll be no comeback, there'll be no consequences. Because if I say to you, hey, Mike, it's not, I don't need to start with, hey, Mike, can I tell you a secret? But
Yeah.
it's pretty
I'm
much,
telling you this in
hey,
confidence.
Mike,
It
exactly.
is.
You don't need to start with that. It's just to be, hey, Mike, this and that, because I've got the confidence that you are my confidant. And I can tell you things without necessarily thinking about any knock on impact and all those sort of things.
Well, one extra thing I do need to throw in here, though, this is about family. People assume that, well, I've got my family, so they've got my back. Yeah, they've got your back because of blood.
Mm,
They've got your back because of history. That doesn't mean to say they're your best friends. They just happen to be blood. My sister would have me as a score of 11 out of 10 or even 12 out of 10 on
mm,
her support network. It's that environment. Whereas
yeah.
for me, it's not equal
Mm,
and it doesn't have to be equal. And so you will have certain people in a support team where they are a 9 for you, but actually you're a 4 for them.
mm,
And that's okay. It doesn't have to be a symbiotic relationship. And it's knowing who on top of that, because one of the other things with family and work colleagues and people around us is we've got to have those positive people there, not the mood hoovers, those ones that bring us down, the negs, the drains, all of the language. And it's knowing how to let go of those people. If they're family, that's difficult. So we
yeah.
need to manage them more effectively.
Mm,
And that becomes a challenge in itself. But if we don't manage them effectively, then we're messing up our own self-care.
yeah. Yeah, and I think you've touched on a very important point, which is the fact that I'm scoring you a 9 or a 10 doesn't necessarily mean that you will score me a 9. I may be a 1 or 2 when it
Mm,
comes to your thing, and that's okay not to be bothered by it. I think that's really important
yeah.
because on the face of it, it will be a shock of, oh my goodness, I thought we're that close and I've been telling you everything, but you won't tell me anything.
It's that balance of the two way, but it's also knowing who do we need to be reaching out to. I've got a friend of mine who he lives in the States and he rang me the morning after something had gone horribly wrong in my family connection in my network. He rang at 9 a.m. UK time. And we debated why he'd rung,
Mm,
and there was no reason. It was just his gut feel. He was a doctor, or he is a doctor in a hospital, ahead of A&E, and
mm,
that this challenge that had happened in my family network meant I needed medical questions answered
mm,
that I could then share with the relevant parties.
yeah.
He was ringing me at 4 a.m. local time. But his gut feel when he was driving home from work, because he did strange hours because of the role, was I need to ring Mike. I haven't spoken to him for a while. And that's you. I know at the end of this, you said you're going to ask me about tips. Well, one of my challenges will be that we need to pick up the phone and ring someone whose our gut feel is saying I need to talk to, because I don't know why. I drove past a friend's house recently, or their village, and I hadn't spoken to him for a couple of months. I picked up the phone. It was the day his wife had her first dose of chemo, and he
Mm,
was on the way back from the hospital and was in a complete mess. And I randomly rang him at that time. Now, whether you're spiritual, religious, whatever else, that's your choice. But the reality is, for some reason, my gut feel said, ring Quentin. So I did.
I think that is absolutely crucial, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because I know people who say similar things, that I got this gut feeling, I got this instinct, this
Mm.
urgency to pick up the phone or to even text somebody, and I didn't. And then the next thing I heard was, and sometimes the sad reality, that person may have even sort of lost their life or something. And then that there is no, that you live with the regret, I wish I had called or texted or whatever at that point. And we hope it doesn't always get to that extreme end. But in the example that you cited, the fact that your medical friend called you when you needed someone to talk to about a medical challenge, the fact that you rang your friend at the time where he probably just needed to speak to a friendly voice or a friendly person, all those goes a long way to help people.
Definitely.
Because yes, that happens all the time. Sometimes you think about somebody, I must call this person or I must check on them. And invariably, when you reach out to them, they will be going through something and will appreciate you reaching out to them.
Yeah. And it's just that whole reality of when we're talking, when the description of everything I do around mental wealth and managing isolation is when we invest in ourselves and our support network, we become wealthier as
Yeah.
an individual. And I'm not talking about cash or dollars or pound or euro, whatever it is. This is about we become wealthier because of our network and the people around us. We are then stronger and able to do more for others because we have taken that selfish approach to looking after number one, managing out the people that don't bring us joy and sustenance and strength, and actively, proactively recruiting the right people in that environment. And we can do this in organizations as leaders. We have the responsibility to help our team members, our employees, our staff to step up and help them create peer support groups, which are set under Chatham House confidential rules, where they can have those discussions and debates, create the buddy systems, so many of these things that are common sense to HR, but not common enough in business. And the final input on that is it's where we fight between organizations that are driven by CSR, corporate social responsibility, and the tick, so we can get the PR noise, we can get the public relations. I'm talking here about human social responsibility, HSR. And that's the thing that's so important. We get HSR right, our staff will stay with us. Millennials and Gen Zs are not going to work for an organization that doesn't care. Period. Their compass has changed, that it's not all materialism. It's about quality of life. That's why they want the hybrid working, living by the seaside and only coming to the office once a week. Yeah, because they want the quality. Well, why not?
Yeah, why not? If you think about it, I think the reason why COVID, apart from the medical aspects of it and then the horrible causes of death and everything else that COVID brought, the reason why COVID brought that point in everyone's life at the time where we all were forced invariably to pause, to think carefully about what is important.
Yes.
And how do we sort of go forth? And I think that's when people started thinking, actually, I've been working so hard and so long and for so whatever that I've not noticed the little things and the big things happening in the lives of the people closest to me. Or I'm on the train at 6 a.m. I don't get back till 10 p.m. and I don't notice anything except what is going on within my immediate working environment, to the detriment of everything else outside of that. And it really got people to think about what is really important in life and to them. And that's when people started talking and thinking and reflecting on, actually, I'd rather take a 30K pay cut than to go back to doing this again.
I've got a proposal with a professional services firm at the moment where they have a challenge with succession planning. They have a large partner base and they're very successful. And the issue is they can't get the senior managers to step up to partner. And the reality is, the senior managers are making a good income already, and the partners they see above them are old, grey, broken, divorced once or twice, have no relationships with their three children or two children. They've got a boat, they've got a cuddly toy, they've got all the bling, but they've got no quality of life. They're not wealthy in the mental wealth environment. So they're poor role models for the next generations that are coming through. And that's the reality of change. It's not all about greed. It's about you. This can sound, yeah, you can say it's all woke. It's not. It's the reality of where we need to be at. It's not the old 80s time of red braces and buy or sell, let them win at all costs. That doesn't work. And it's a fascinating world that we're working within now. And companies that are taking the lead in this will keep their employees, will recruit new, and they will work and grow and become very productive. But we need to really put, from an HR perspective, support the HR environment so that we are strong enough to do what needs to be done to help people grow, rather than be seen as that irritating department that blocks and prevents stuff from happening and having fun, which is the negative mud that gets thrown and always. But the reality is, no, we're there and we're helping, we're building. So we need to get better at our own PR within companies to say, yeah, I hear what you're saying there, but that can't work. But this is how we can do it, and we build it. And that's teaching grandma to suck eggs, I appreciate, but it is that reality.
Great. Thank you very much, Mike. I think it's a topic that we can probably keep talking about for hours on end, no doubt. And yes, it's great to have a conversation around mental wealth, putting humans back at the center of focus for organizations, and sort of looking after the mental wealth of your employees as well as yourself. Because like whenever you get aboard an airplane, is in case of an emergency, put your oxygen mask on first before help anyone next to you. So we all need to get better at looking after our own mental wealth first before we worry a lot about everyone else. And actually, by being in a better state of wealth, we'll always be in a better state to help people within our network and everyone else relying on us. So thank you very much for that. I would like to end the episode with your top 3 tips.
Top 3 tips. Okay. First one, go through and do that mental wealth team, that support network review. Yeah, that's the first thing, because when we do that review, you start to see the reality of who truly has your back and who doesn't, and just gives you a baseline for today. And then every 3 months going forward, reflect and do that again. That's tip number 1. And there's loads more stuff of where you can get more information on that particular tool. It's part of it. The other one then is really specifically understanding, why do people not ask for help within the organization? What is the prevention? So whether you be a multinational, whether you be an SME, whatever size it is, you've got people in there that are refusing to ask for help. And we need to create an environment of psychological safety where that setup will happen, be that through peer groups, mastermind groups, be that through one-to-one coaching that we provide, or be that however we do it, we've got to help manifest that situation. And if you haven't got that area set up for yourself either, then be selfish. Look after number 1 first. Test it. Then you know it works with this environment. Now we can roll it out across the company. So that's the other one. And then tip number 3 is pick up the phone. Do not text. I know you said text earlier. Do not text. Do not tweet or X them or whatever it is. Better still, if you live locally, go and see them. You do not know what is going on in somebody else's background, where that phone call could be all the difference. Just do that thing. So as a result of this, listening to this today, I want you to make specifically 1 call. And I just finished with 1 story there. I did a talk last month where I said this to everybody. I want you to pick up the phone to 1 person. I found out that day about a particular person who was unfortunately going through some very ugly cancer, but it had come on in a 6-week period. That quickly. I had a 45-minute conversation with him on the phone that night. He was gone a week later. if I procrastinated, stalled, or whatever else, I'd have missed that opportunity. We'd have missed the catch up and everything else. We really need to just think of that human social responsibility and be brilliant human beings. What one person could do with a bit of Mikey, could do with a bit of Mary, could do with a bit of whoever you are, and just do that, make the difference.
Thank you very much, Mike, and all very practical top tips. Love those. And so for anyone tuning in, listening to us, please do pick up that phone and call somebody. You might never know, that call would change someone's lives. So thank you very much, Mike. And thank you for tuning in. And if you have any questions for us, I mean, Mike has got his QR codes up there. You can
definitely
directly in touch with him, or you can let us know through HR Voices at hrindependence.co.uk. If you have any topic that you'd like us to discuss, please do get in touch and we'll do our very best to accommodate them. Thank you once again for tuning in, and thank you, Mike. See you.
Thank you so much, Pete. It's been a pleasure.
Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of HR Voices. If you have a topic you'd like us to cover or would like to be a guest, we'd love to hear from you. Connect with us on social media or email us at hrvoices@hrindependence.co.uk. Tune in next time.